And as you can see, it's a little bit chilly here in the People's Republic of Washington today, but that's okay. I'm going to shoot this video outside anyways because it's a last gasp, decent weather out here. So um, today's video is going to be a little bit different. Normally we do, political commentary. My video I did yesterday was, of course, a current event, which don't do a lot, but yesterday was special. Today is going to be a remembrance.
To America! Death to the and death!
As many of you know, September 11th, 2001, we had the horrible terrorist attacks on the United States by radical Muslim extremists. Today is the 24th anniversary of that date, and unfortunately, this year, it's kind of being ignored, and there's good reason why it's being ignored today. Yesterday was a very tragic day for America as a whole. We had a successful political assassination yesterday, and unfortunately we lost Charlie Kirk, who was a strong conservative voice, and he was killed by an assassin, a cowardly assassin, and unfortunately we have some people in this country who are cheering this, which is just insanity to me, but that's all beside the point. The point is that because of the magnitude of that story from yesterday, still dominating the news, and they're still on the hunt for the killer today. September 11th is being ignored, and it shouldn't be. This is something we need to remember. If you look back at history, there have been a lot of defining moments for this country, and September 11th was one of them. If you remember December 7th, 1941, the date which will live in infamy, the day the Japanese did a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor and brought America into World War II. That was a very defining moment for America, and a very defining moment for the generations before mine. I'm Generation X. My generation was born way after Pearl Harbor and World War II. We know about it. We're saddened by it. But in our lifetimes, that was not our defining moment. That was not our day that will live in infamy. For people my age who've lived through the same time period as me, I would have to say September 11, 2001 is our day that will live in infamy in our minds. So I'm going to start off by going through my own experiences on that day, as a reminder to those who remember it, and as a lesson to those who were not born yet, to let them know what happened that day and what it felt like. So, September 11th, the morning of September 11th, 2001, I was a machinist. I was at work. I was on graveyard shift here in Washington. My shift ended at 6:30 in the morning, so I was still at work when the first plane hit the Twin Towers. I remember I was sitting there running my machine, just doing my thing, making airplane parts. That's what I did for a living. And somebody came over to my machine and said, "Hey, did you hear it?" And I said, "Hear what?" He says, "An airplane hit one of the World Trade Center towers." And I was like, "Really? What the hell happened?" And they're like, "I don't know, but it's all over the news." And I'm like, "Holy crap." So immediately my mind goes to, what happened? Did the airplane go down and just happen to hit the thing? What happened? You know, at this point, it's just, oh my God, that's a terrible tragedy. You know, all those people, right? And so I turn on the radio because back then we didn't have internet at work. Some of us had it in our homes, but we didn't have internet at work. You know, all we had was a radio to listen to. So I put my radio on and turn it to the news station, and I'm listening, and I hear talking about a plane hit the tower. And while I'm listening, I all of a sudden hear, oh my God, a second plane has hit the second tower. And I'm like, what in the hell? You know, I mean, yeah, one plane hitting a building, I mean, that's freaking terrible, but, you know, it's an accident, right? A plane went down, something happened, something went wrong, right? You know, that's no big deal. But a second plane hitting the building next door, something's going on. This ain't coincidence. Something bad's happening, you know. And I remember hearing that, and I'm just like, oh my God, you know, what in the heck's going on? And so shortly after the second plane hit the tower, my shift ended. I lived 60 miles from work. My parents only lived 5 miles away, so I hopped in my car and I hauled ass up to their house because I wanted to see what was going on, right? So, you know, I ring the doorbell, I wake them up, get them out of bed. They answer the door, I tell them what's going on. We go in the living room and we turn on the TV. Now, in those days, the only 24-hour news we had, you know, the only, I guess, closest thing to streaming you could get, which was 24-hour news, was on CNN. But I'm sure every station at that time was covering it. But I immediately went, you know, hey, let's turn on CNN, right? Because we know they're always on. And at the time, they were a very respected news organization. They were really good back in those days, not the shit show they are today. They were actually respectable and real journalists, you know. So we went to CNN, and I'm watching, and you can see the two towers burning. And it's just like, oh my God. And they're kind of speculating. We don't know what's going on. We feel this is intentional. We don't know who's responsible. You know, they're saying all this kind of stuff. You know, conjecture's happening at this point. And then as we're sitting there watching, we start seeing people jumping from the buildings. These are people who were trapped above the flames and could not get down. So they were literally jumping out of the windows and killing themselves before they burned alive. And I remember the reporter saying, oh my God, is that a person? Is that a person? Oh my God, is the person's falling? And I'm just like, whoa, that's insane. And then I remember seeing a man and a woman falling together. They jumped together, and it was just heart-wrenching to see what was going on in front of me, you know. And I'm already getting pretty, you know, emotional at this point. And then we saw the first tower collapse. I remember I was sitting there talking to my dad, you know, we're kind of talking. I saw out of the corner of my eye the building start to fall. And I was like, look, you know, I'm like, it's collapsing. And we watched the first building collapse. And, you know, it was just horrific to watch. Because, you know, what's running through the mind is all those people that are still trapped in there, all the rescuers who are up in the building trying to get people out, all the people who were on the ground around the building as it's collapsing and just killing all these people. And it's happening right in front of my eyes on live TV. And it was horrific to watch. I mean, at that point, I'm starting to tear up. I mean, this is terrible. Then we hear about the plane that goes down in Pennsylvania, right? And we're like, is that related? It went down. It didn't hit nothing, but you know what's going on with that? Dang it. You know, we're like, what's going on with that? You know, this plane went down. What's going on? You know, on the news is reporting, we don't know if this was related, but a plane has crashed in Pennsylvania. You know, later, of course, we find out that it was another hijacked plane where the passengers actually fought back. And they did manage to take the plane back from the terrorists, but unfortunately, the terrorists had put it into a dive, and they were unable to get to the controls and recover the aircraft, and it went down. And they went down fighting. American heroes, everyone, as far as I'm concerned. But it was tragic. And then we hear a plane's hit the Pentagon. The Pentagon. the center of the defense of this nation was hit by terrorists. And we're like, we're at war. We are at this point, we know we're at war. We're at war with somebody. We are going to war. And this is not too long after the Cold War ended. And, we're talking, people my age, we grew up around, the fear of nuclear warfare every day for most of our lives up to that point. So we're thinking we're going to war. This is going to get bad. This is World War III, right? That's what's running through my head, at least. I'm like, this is bad, bad, bad. Now, I'm a veteran. I had been in the Army for several years and I had gotten out. And, first things running through my mind is, I'm gonna go back, right? I'm gonna go to war. I was past where they could mandatorily call me back, but I was like, no, we're going to war and I'm going. This is what's running through my head at this time. Is this is all going on. So after sitting there watching TV at my parents' house for I don't know, hour and a half or so, I'm like, I'm heading home. I need to get home. So I hop in my car and I'm driving home. I hear the second towers collapse. And it just, when I heard the second tower collapse, I cried. I'm driving home alone in my car, and I cried. And I am not a crier. Okay, I don't cry, but I cried. It was, the emotions were just overwhelming. So as I'm driving home, I go through a lot of emotions, right? I go from crying to I'm pissed off at the world. I want to kill everybody. I'm like, that's it. I'm going back. I'm gonna kill some bitches. I'm gonna make whoever did this pay. And then I started getting this massive patriotic feeling. I'm American. We ain't taking this crap. We're gonna take it to them. And I'm like, go America. Let's get these bastards. And I get home. I wake up my wife. Tell her what's going on. She starts watching some of the replays. She starts crying, and I'm sitting there and I'm just mad and American, and we're going to get them, just all run through my head. And so I had this little American flag. I don't know, that, yay big, little American flag. I grabbed it. I went out in the driveway and I put the American flag on the antenna of my car, right? I'm going to fly the flag. You can't knock us down. I'm gonna show I'm America. We're still here. I'm gonna fly my flag. So I put my little flag on my antenna. And later in the day, things are starting to settle down. We realized it was a terrorist attack. It was Al Qaeda. And we start hearing the details of how they did it and all this thing. And I'm getting madder and madder. But anyways, I I had to go to town for some reason. Had to go to the store or something. So I hop in my car and I head into town. Got my little American flag on the antenna flapping away, and I drive into town. And when I got into town, which is nearest town is 30 miles away, I get down into town and I see American flags everywhere. People have them on their cars like me. I guess I didn't have an original idea. A lot of people did it. And there was American flags on cars. There was American flags, hung on stuff outside of businesses. I mean, if somebody had an American flag, they put it up. It was just insane. And as the days went on, there was more and more American flags everywhere. I've never seen such a patriotic outpouring in my entire life in this nation. The most beautiful thing of it all, in all that tragedy, was the way we as Americans came together. It didn't matter what party you were. It didn't matter, what color you were, what race you were, political beliefs. It just didn't matter. We were all Americans, and we were all pissed off, and we all wanted payback. And it was a beautiful thing. We were, for a time, a united nation again. And it was awesome to have that feeling. We were all in this together. We were all going to take our revenge. We were going to get them back. Now, it was a very tragic thing, and we swore we would never forget. Well, here in 2025, 24 years later, we've forgotten, and it's sad. A big part of that is we have generations now who are of age who weren't there, didn't know about it. And they don't understand the dangers of radical Islam. They don't understand it so badly that we have so many young people in this nation who are protesting to support radical Islamists in Palestine. They're supporting Hamas. They look at Hamas as victims. Hamas are not victims. They are radical Islamists. Okay? These people, their beliefs are incompatible with Western society. Radical Islam, they still enforce slavery. They live by Sharia law. Sharia law is oppressive by nature, and it goes against everything that we would consider freedom and rights. You have no rights under Sharia law. Women have zero rights under Sharia law. Women can't leave the house without covering up. They can't be seen in public with a male who's not a member of their family. If they commit adultery, they can be stoned to death, where the man, he only gets whipped, but the woman gets stoned to death, because women are lesser beings. They don't have an opinion. They are very anti-woman. And, and these young kids have no concept of what radical Islam is. They have this fairy tale in their head that we're all the same, yada, yada. And they are defending these people, seeing them as victims. Hamas attacked Israel like they have time and time and time again. They continually attack Israel. Israel retaliates, knocks them down, they build up, they attack again. They're not victims. They started the fight. They attacked Israel. And they didn't attack Israel because Israel's oppressing them. Israel's not oppressing them. Israel gave them their own little place to be. Here, this is your place, you run it. Yeah, it's a shithole. It's a shithole because it's being run by radical Islamists. That's why it's a shithole. It's not a shithole because of Israel. Israel was giving them aid and paying for their power, for crying out loud. And they still ran it into the ground. Because they're radical Islamists. The only thing they care about is killing infidels. Under radical Islam, under Sharia law, if you're not a Muslim, you have two options. You can convert or die. It's not my opinion. That's in the Quran. That's their laws. Infidels either need to convert or die. And because Israel will not convert, they should die. That's what the attack was in October of 2023? Yeah, October. It's been almost 2 years. October 2023. It was an attack against the infidels. And they didn't attack Israel's army. In war, you only attack the enemy's army, right? You go army on army. That's the way wars are supposed to be fought in civilized society. No, they went after civilians. They killed, tons of civilians. They killed men, women, children, young people at the concert. Surprise attack, unarmed people. They slaughtered them. And they kidnapped a bunch. They burned people alive. They killed babies. And they kidnapped a bunch of people. Now, that's not a victim. Okay? Now they're getting the consequences for that attack. Israel's kicking their butts all over, all around the globe. That's not oppression. That's payback. Don't pick a fight you can't win. But they do it time after time again. Israel beats them back and then stops, tries to help them, and then they attack Israel again. It's the same old cycle. Because radical Islam has no tolerance for someone who's not Islamic. And their end goal is to wipe out everything that isn't Islam. Now, before you people start calling me, oh, you're racist, yada, yada, yada. Number one, Islam's a religion, not a race. Okay? There are several races who practice Islam. You have Middle Easterners, you have Asians, and you have Africans. And there's even, Europeans, white Europeans who practice Islam. It's not a racial thing, it's a religion thing, and it's a violent religion. Now, there are a lot of moderate Muslims in this world. They're kind of like moderate Christians in this world, ones who believe in the faith but don't take every single word literally in their religion. There are moderate Muslims, but unfortunately, these radical groups like Hamas and ISIS and all these people, these are ones who take it word for word exactly what the Quran says. And the Quran says some really messed up shit. Okay? Medieval punishments, slavery's allowed, women have zero rights. Okay? And that's what they enforce. But the most ridiculous thing that I see in our country today, and there's a lot of ridiculous shit in our country today, let me tell you what, but something that absolutely defies logic is this group, Gays for Palestine. Gays for Palestine. Talk about uninformed, uneducated morons. If you're gay and you go to Palestine, they're going to toss your ass off a roof. Because being gay is an abomination in Islam, and under Sharia law is punishable by death. And there are many, many Islamic countries that practice this. And like I said, one of the favorite punishments is to toss your ass off a building. That's not an opinion. That's a reality. And Americans are so naive, as to what Islam actually is, especially radicalized Islam, which follows the Quran word for word. They're so naive about what that is that they're actually seeing these people as victims and that they need to be saved. These people will kill you. Not only will they toss the gays off the building, but these leftists and their ideals do not match their version of what the world should be. And you would either conform or be killed too. All you women out there screaming for free Palestine, if you went to Palestine, you'd be punished for speaking in public. And if you kept doing it, you would be killed for speaking in public. Because you're not allowed to speak in public as a female under radical Islam. It's just insane, the naivety of the American youth today. Granted, they weren't alive when September 11th happened. So they don't, have it pounded into their head like we did. But for God's sake, educate yourself. Radical Islam is not your friend. You people need to wake up. Because Islam, especially radical Islam, is a danger to our way of life. It is not compatible with freedom and rights, and with women's rights, and with gays' rights. It is absolutely not compatible with that. It's a danger to everything that we believe in America as far as freedom and stuff is concerned. It should not be allowed. And you idiots that are protesting for it are just so naive and ill-informed. It's just, you look ridiculous to people who know reality. Hope sometime you people wake up. But that being said, again, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what today means to those of us who lived through it, and stick this out there because it's kind of being overlooked this year, and for good reason. It's being overlooked. Much bigger story today, but it needs to be put out there. Remind people and also to remind people how it felt when we were a united nation, and hopefully we can get back there someday. It's not looking good though. And with that, that's all I have for today. We'll see you next time on Behind the Wire. Good night.